Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Denise Dudley, author of Work It, Get In, Get Noticed, Get Promoted. Denise, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Paul. I'm delighted to be here.
Are you ready to get started?
I can't wait.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Well, I don't think this will be an original answer. I bet you've heard it before, but the thing I would most want to tell everyone is just don't give up. Don't let obstacles get in your way, because there will seem like there are obstacles. And so few people actually accomplish anything they finish, let alone book writing, which I think is even less so. Most people start a book and then never finish it. Almost everybody has a book in their head, of course, and some people have a chapter or two down on paper, but so few people get through the whole process. And so there are distractions, as you know, and there are setbacks, and there are times when you realize you have to rewrite entire sections, and it seems sort of discouraging, but just don't give up and don't let things derail you. And I guess similarly, I would say that as you are not giving up, sometimes it becomes clear that you just need to keep practicing. Write. I used to teach writing, business writing, and I treated business writing instruction the way I would have actually taught creative writing or any other kind of writing, which was find your voice, write like you talk. If you get stuck, just start writing anyway. You're going to untangle yourself. But practice really makes a big difference in not giving up, just keeping on going and not walking away from it for too long a period of time.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think the hardest part about getting published is finding the right publisher, perhaps, because if you're in an ideal world, I think that it would be a good idea if you can find the publisher who seems to be best matched to the type of book you're writing. And so even for me, you and I were chatting before we went on the air, for my book, for this current book, I've written a lot of different books, but this current book is very clearly directed toward young people who are just beginning their careers. And so I had some interest from several other publishers on this book, and they were great publishers, and they're people I get along with really well, but they weren't necessarily the best vehicle by which I could reach young audiences of people in the business world. So I went actually with Skill Path Seminars. I'm actually the founder of Skill Path Seminars, so it was a bit of a shoe-in terms of using Skill Path, although I wasn't originally choosing them, only because Skill Path, which is a seminar company, deals mostly with adult learners who are already established in their jobs. However, we being Skill Path Publications is a very, very large business publication house. And so I chose Skill Path because I believed it was the correct publisher for the genre of book I wrote, which was a business book. So I think probably the hardest part might be trying to link up with the right publisher. Now, of course, you have to get that publisher to want to publish your book, so it has to be a good enough book that they're going to read it and respond to you and not just say no. But that really involves, I think, being qualified and being ready to send a polished, completed product off before you start investigating publishers.
Absolutely. I always talk about the three keys. The first key, having a great looking book cover. The second key, having a well-edited book. And the third key, having a compelling book description that helps sell the book. And you have to have all three of those things. And then you have to have the right publisher. You have to have, for what you've done, it's a perfect fit, because you, very similar to my company, we're working with business owners that also want to be able to utilize that book on the back end, but need to make sure that the book is published and marketed correctly. And when you have that synergy, it just makes all the difference.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I totally agree with everything you just said.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
So a couple things have worked really well besides the normal things that everybody would think of. One of them really has to do with me and who I am. So I'm a I'm actually a professional speaker and have been for my whole life, and I have a very big speaking engagement career going. So I'm in front of lots and lots of audiences all the time. Well, one of the things that I've done with this particular book is that I bring a few copies of my book and I give a few books away at my presentations and keynotes, with a caveat here: if the topic is related to the book content. I don't go in with this book, which is really written for young people beginning their careers, and give copies away when I'm teaching relationship building to couples. I just feel like that's not appropriate. But if the topic I'm speaking of on has to do with the book content, then I give a few copies away. I will add this thing, though, that there's something that I don't do, so I don't want to give your listeners the wrong impression. I am not a big fan of what I see some speakers do, where they have these giveaways. I find them to be a little bit corny, or I guess I might say gimmicky, where it's like, answer this question, yay, give him a round of applause, and you get a free book. I just don't feel right doing that. What I do is I lay a few copies out, and I say these are books that are copies of the book I wrote, and anyone who really wants one is welcome to take one. And it always sorts itself out if I bring 5 or 6 copies of the book. But what that does is it does get a lot of people coming up, looking at the book, and then ordering it later, either through SkillPath or through Amazon. My book's also on Amazon. So it really helps to give a few books away and to be able to just have them there in a gentle, non-pushy sort of way. And so I do that. The other thing that's really helped me a lot, and I was not sure if I wanted to do it, I was a little bit sitting on the fence, but I went ahead and I converted my book into Kindle format. And so it's available both in hard copy and Kindle on Amazon. And I also made sure that it was in a format that Amazon Prime could sell it, because in talking to people, so many people are Amazon Prime buyers, and if you're not on Prime, they're just not going to buy it. And so my sales went up on Amazon when I went on to Prime, and in particular when I converted to Kindle. So I really recommend to your authors that they go ahead. It costs a little bit of money to do these conversions, but it seemed to be quite worth it to me.
Yeah, and one of my favorite tactics as well is, like you, I like to give away the book. And what I'll typically do, especially if I'm speaking at a conference, is the people that are in the crowd will get probably 3/4 into it, and I'll ask them, it's like, hey, do you bring speakers to your company or to your campus? And they're like, yeah, well, great. These are a couple little tips that we can help you with to help you bring speakers in your company or your campus. And if you guys are interested, what I'd like to do, just come see me afterwards. I'd like to have you guys just fill out a really quick intent form, just get a little more information about what you're looking for. And as a thank you, what I'd like to do is give you an autographed paperback copy of my book, which is also based on this seminar, Motivation 101. Would that be okay? And just by doing that, very nonchalant, very laid back, non-pushy, we typically get 30% of the room to come up and grab a copy of the book, get an opportunity to connect, and also get some pretty impressive leads out of it.
Cool. Good job. That's a very, very good idea. Very nice. And it really helps, doesn't it? It just helps to just be kind of mentioning it gently and sort of not a real pushy thing. I don't want to feel like I'm hawking something, but just to be able to make mention of it, have it around, it's a good idea.
Yeah, conversation, non-sales, yeah, and that's our approach. Anytime that we're talking with prospective clients, we take the holistic approach. We don't make it about money or anything else. That's the last thing we talk about. We want to talk about how they're doing and then what they want to get out of the book, which I'm sure you do as well, because that's the main thing, is getting to know what they want. That takes care of everything else.
You bet it does. It really does. It's that kind of really wonderful idea about, making sure that when we're selling anything that we're much more client-centered than we are sales-centered, making sure that we understand what someone needs.
Well, and as I'm sure you know, I think that's the biggest thing missing in publishing right now.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. I agree with you.
Well, let's talk about books a little bit more. So what is your favorite book? And what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
I think this answer will surprise you. I'm pretty sure no one came up with this one. I'm sure your constituency out there listening knows that these questions get sent to us ahead of time, and so I kind of knew that you might want an answer that would have to do with a business book but honestly, I decided that I'm going to tell you the absolute truth. And my favorite book is a book called The Right Stuff by Tom Wolfe. I love that book. It was written way back when, I think in the late 70s, I'd say. it took him forever to write it. You can go look up, Tom Wolfe, who was a brilliant writer and actually was one of the inventors of a style that's called reportage today, where it's well written, kind of exciting, good writing, but also factual. He was one of the fathers of reportage, and it took him forever to write it. It took a lot of research. This is about the whole space program and the astronauts. I don't know if you're familiar with this book or not. I will tell your audience, don't run out and watch the movie, because it is not, with all respect to the movie, it is nothing like the book. The book is brilliantly written. It won some awards, National Book Award for nonfiction and things like this. But what it taught me, I guess, is it taught me what great writing is. It's beautiful writing. You just read his sentences, and you read his short sentences. He was sort of the master of early on coming up with one-word sentences right in the middle of a paragraph that could excite you and motivate you to keep reading. And so he was one of the finest craftspeople, in my opinion, on the written word. And he inspired me to truly think about my writing, not so much, because I come from I'm a clinical psychologist, so a lot of my writing in my lifetime has been very clinical and technical and cut and dried, but he inspired me to think about, even if you're writing an abstract, or you're writing something technical, or I did so much writing for Skill Path, which was just writing about businesses and how to be a better supervisor and things. He taught me that no matter what you're writing, even if it's factual, even if it's a training program, that it can be written beautifully and well and enthusiastically. So I love to write stuff, and every now and then I go back and read it and just marvel at his ability.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Well, okay, this is actually my quote. It's something that I came up with many years ago because it was related to my life. There were just all kinds of crazy things happening, not good things. And I wasn't really sure what was happening and where things were going. And so I have come up with this because I believe it is the truth, and it's this, that there are going to be moments in your life when you are going to be unable to tell the bad news from the good. And it could be that you think the worst possible thing is happening right around you right now, and in another day or two or a week, you're going to find out that it was the best thing that could have possibly happened ever. And so I try to live that way, knowing that just because something's happening right in the moment and it seems like a bad thing, it's not just a look for the silver lining kind of attitude. It's also a let's just wait this out, keep moving along, clean it up as much as we can, stay positive, and then let's just see what happens next, because it may be the springboard that you needed to have the most fabulous thing happen to you that's ever occurred in your lifetime.
I like that quote.
Boy, it sure works for me.
I like that. Well, Denise, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Well, there are several ways. One of them is my website, which is Denise M, as in Marie, DeniseMDudley.com. That's pretty easy. And then I'm also on the usual suspects, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Or you could always reach me through Skill Path Seminars, since I'm the founder and former CEO, and they always can track me down and they know where I am. So those are the best ways to do it.
Denise, I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
And the same to you, Paul. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.